Hello everyone, Sai here. Thank you so much for joining me for a Kendra Card challenge video. I am finishing up with my last 5 cards in KCC 22. It is already becoming the end of June, which means it's the end of a quarter, and a new quarter will be starting next month with KCC 23. And I got a glimpse of what it looks like, and it's fun. So let's not focus too much on KCC 23. Let's focus on the last 5 cards. And I'm going to be creating my first card following sketch number 11. So I have gone ahead and cut out all the pieces using the June 2026 Bonus Printable, which is the Electric Aquarium Digital Card Making Kit collection. And if you are a Patreon membership, you would be able to get this bonus printable. So I've gone ahead and already cut these all out ahead of time. I decided for my colors, because there's so many colors here, that I just worked with 2 pattern papers and 2 plain cardstocks so that there wasn't too much competing with each other. The first step that I did was I had cut out a piece of white cardstock that's measuring 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I laid down all the pieces as best as I can, working with the top left and then kind of just zigzagging all my way down until each piece has been lined up. And then once I knew everything was going to fit, I can start gluing every piece down. You don't need to worry about all the overhanging parts because we will trim those all off once everything is in place. It is a busier sketch, but it is a lot of fun, especially the design that you can make with it. And in my case, it kind of gives me this coral feel to it. I know that the pattern paper helps with that, but it definitely has this fun geometric coral feel to it. It's not overly organic, but it still gives me this nice feel like as if it is part of the ocean. Now, I'm not sure if I cut this last piece a little bit too small, but I see that I have my white showing. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. What I'll do is, instead of having it 3 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to trim it down about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch on both sides, so that it will still be proportionate to the matte layers that we attach it to. And it will cut off that white. So there we go. So just trimming it off. Actually, it looks about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'll cut off all the excess. You can use scissors. You don't need to use the guillotine, but because everything is kind of measured, it works. And then here I'm going to cut off another 1/8 of an inch on the bottom so that it's all proportionate now to this black layer. In the sketch, it shows the 2 dark grays. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And the largest one, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, that's usually your card base. And so I've gone and used one of the pattern papers from the Bonus Printable, and I'm going to use that full width that's going to cover my card base. Before I glue anything down, I've brought in some peel-off stickers from Love from Lizzie's. These are translucent white glitter, or say a clear glitter. And I'm going to be going over every single seam just so that there is a little bit of a transition breaker. And it's not going to be adding any more color, but it will add some glitter. Kind of like, it just reminds me of, I know fish aren't glittery, but they do shine and sparkle when the sun hits them. And so that's the kind of what I'm trying to create here. It's just that underwater feel with this very intricate design, this intricate card design. Now that that's all set in place, let's glue our panel down to the black layer, which, if you look at the sketch, is that darker gray, which is measuring 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And of course, we have a thicker border just because we trimmed our panel down a bit. There we go. And then we will glue this down to our pattern paper. Now, if you didn't want to waste your pattern paper, you could definitely cut the center out because we're only showing the tiniest little bit on the edges. But I really like that bright color to match with my fluorescent pink that I chose. and I wanted to tie it in a bit. So I didn't want too much, but I think this is nice. It's kind of giving this, the further back you go, the darker and deeper the water is, and it's just getting that depth in there. I think it's kind of fun. I did have to trim that down. I think my card base was a tiny bit too large, so just trim that off camera. And now we're going to add some ephemera. This is all from the Bonus Printable, and I have two little fish and the sentiment birthday fishes. Should be happy birthday fishes, but these are just birthday fishes. And we're going to just glue down them in a nice little cluster as if they were swimming around. So there we go. We'll tuck this little fancy fish in the background there, and then I'm going to prop up both the fish and the sentiment together. I did about 3 to 4 layers of scrap white cardstock, and I'm just going to glue those two edges and then plop it just slightly over top of the small fish. And there we go. This is finishing card number 11, and I followed it almost pretty close. Okay, now we're moving on to card number 12. I've already done card number 12 and 13 when we were doing the hop back in April, but let's create another one using this Bonus Printable for June. And it's a really pretty card sketch. I just love the little banners, and it can make some for real fun, easy cards that you can send out. So I am following the guideline where I have 4 different pieces of pattern paper. If you look at the sketch, there is the pink banner on the top, then you have the yellow, purple, and red banners. And so each one of those is representing a different pattern paper. So if you are following the cutting guides, that's part of the printable, then you would have your 6 pieces of pattern paper. You'd have them all separated into each card sketch, and you should have the 4 pieces. Now I have brought in a piece of blue cardstock for my background, which is white in the sketch. And then my card base is going to be that background, that gray background layer, if you're following the sketch. And just to make it a little bit more scenic, I've added the seahorse and a bit of coral. And then for the circle, I have my birthday fishes sentiment that was part of the printable, and I just fussy cut that out and use that. Very cute, very easy. I just love these bonus printables, and I like the fact that all the images are on their separate pages so that you can just print out those. So if you wanted to have multiples, you can print out that page a couple times and just cut them out. Okay, and there we go. That is sketch number, 12. Moving on to sketch number 13. I have once again cut everything out off camera, and we're going to change this up a little bit. I'm not going to be adding that second layer to the largest banner, which is using paper B. I think that having the extra is unnecessary for my pattern paper. I think it looks pretty good with it flat to the card. So there we go. I'm just going to make sure that it's still nice and proportionate on both sides before I glue my second banner down. Best fishes, that is, I try my best to center that while I was cutting it from the printable. It could be aligned a little bit better, but it's not too bad. If I had a nice piece of ephemera or some little embellishments, I could definitely offset it and make it less noticeable. But I really like this clean design with the blues and the pinks. Here we go, and this card is pretty much done. I'm just going to start decorating it now with some of the ephemera that I have in the bonus printable, and I'm going to create a little fish scene as if it's on the bottom of the ocean floor, and we have 2 pieces of coral, and I just love how all of this is working together, especially because I fussy cut it in such a way that I'm able to tuck like that fish. I'm going to tuck it in the seaweed so it looks like there's a little bit more dimension to that, and the fish is not just floating there. And I think this card is probably one of my favorites of the 5. I just love how this little scene finishes it up. And there we go. Just place that right down. And that looks pretty good. And that's how we finished number 13. Okay, now we're going to be creating a card I haven't created yet, and this is following sketch 14. I have everything cut out. And for the 2 embossed gray rectangles, I did not emboss it. I just used some plain blue cardstock. You can totally emboss that. You can stencil that. You can ink that. You can do whatever you'd like to make it your own. But I decided to keep it nice and clean. My background that is the white rectangle, which is measuring 5 1/4 by 4. I went with a very busy fish pattern paper, so I think that is busy enough for me, and I didn't need to do much more with the blue. And I'm also going to be adding some ephemera and a sentiment, so it'll cover up some of this. Now, I might have cut things off, or I didn't put enough border on the left and right, but I pretty much tried to make it perfectly spaced on the outside and in between the top and bottom of each layer, meaning that I have a much larger gap between each column. So for example, on the very top layer, you have the blue shell pattern paper and then the solid blue. That gap in between is much larger than what you would see in the card sketch, but I actually like it like this. I prefer to have a nice even border on the outside, and then the inside can be thicker. So now that we have all that glued down, and it's a very easy design to follow, we'll just put that to our card base. And that's pretty much this card as well. Let's just start adding our sentiment, which I've used a very, very bright fluorescent pink. I thought this was really pretty, especially with that seahorse ephemera that was part of the collection. And it just kind of complements. It is bright, but it does complement the pattern papers and the blue that we used. For this extra coral, I'm going to add a little bit onto the right-hand side. I'm going to build it up. I think this looks really nice, trying to create this wrap around the whole bottom and top right side so that it's kind of hugging that corner and proportioning it so that sentiment can now stand out as well. And that was that card. And we're on to card 15. This is moving really fast. I can barely keep up with the voiceover just to make sure that I say all the key pieces that were needed to be said. For this sketch, I am not going to be using that gray strip in the background, and instead I decided to do the full width, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 of that fish scale background. So I decided to do that instead. And building my centerpiece, I have a sentiment that I cut out from the Bonus Printable, and it says "See you soon." And I've kind of tucked that in to the little skinny banner there. And I'm going to bring in some more Love from Lizzie Pilos. These are translucent pink, and it has like a zigzag. It's like a wave. And I'm just going to put that on the top and bottom just to break it up so you can see where the sentiment panel starts and ends, since it's all white. And there we go. I actually like using these Love from Lizzie Pilos for making it look like it's icing on a cake. I just really like that little zigzaggy wave. It looks really good, especially in the pink. Okay. The one thing I like about the seahorse is it hugs the sentiment very well. It just has the perfect shape for that belly going into the sentiment. So I'm going to layer that there purposely, and then I will put this all together, and I have one more little ephemera piece, and I'll put that on the bottom left. But first, let's lift this up with some scrap cardstock I have in my stash. This is about 3 layers. There we go. Well, as we get close to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you for joining me on this adventure of this challenge. It's another quarter coming to an end, and I hope you've been enjoying all the different cards I created. I did finish all 15, but I did break it up into each month, and that was so that I can create 5 cards using the bonus printables for each month. And I hope that was something that you looked forward to or you enjoyed seeing. Here are the 5 cards that I just created, and I really like them, but I love the sea. I love this theme. It's one of my favorite types. And until the next time, have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care. Bye.